Hello YouTube, I hope you're all well. Welcome to Quotology. Today is the 29th of May and I'm going to talk about our second quote of the series. So this quote I found in a book called The Righteous Mind by Jonathan Haidt, who's a moral psychologist. And it's a really interesting book. It explains how people form their political and religious views in terms of how morality develops throughout human life. So in the book he talks a lot about how opinions form from an early age, but also interestingly how we can better integrate our own opinions with other people's opinions. So here's the quote. It's actually by the third patriarch of Zen Buddhism called Seng-Ts'an, from one of his stanzas called On Trust in the Heart. But some people would recognise it from Bruce Lee, he quoted it as well. So it goes, "The perfect way is only difficult for those who pick and choose. Do not like, do not dislike, all will then be clear. Make a hairbreadth difference, and heaven and earth are set infinitely apart. If you want the truth to stand clear before you, never be for or against. The struggle between for and against is the mind's worst disease." So I think what Seng-Ts'an is saying here is that essentially, in a very poetic and pleasant sounding way, he's just saying the ego's sort of battle between for and against ultimately is a fruitless struggle, because it's a manifestation of the ego trying to cling on and identify with an agenda and to sort of make its identity more concrete, I suppose. I think we're continually tricking ourselves into believing that we are what we believe and we are our opinions and that kind of thing. I mean, don't get me wrong, opinions can be incredibly useful. It can be useful to oneself to articulate your thoughts in the moment, and it can be useful to, for example, with prescriptive type opinions. So prescriptive being there should be more women in politics. I think there should be more women in politics. So that's a useful sort of opinion because it's going to lead to progress. Whereas there's another kind of opinion called descriptive, whereby you say, you know, I don't like the colour red, or oh, I hate dogs. Well, who hates dogs, to be honest? But I think that kind of statement, the I like, I don't like kind of statement, is particularly damaging because it traps us. It makes those things all too real, but it's actually an illusion. I think in reality, the truth of who we are is much more simple, really. It's not the mind's struggle between one side and the other. It's more than that. It's just being present in the moment, essentially. And when you are just truly present in the moment, these kind of thoughts dissolve away. By constantly labeling everything, we create this kind of framework, which is a false framework of, you know, everything has to be on the spectrum of between good and evil. Whereas what I think is more useful is just to be aware that, well, it's to relax into everything and be aware that, not aware, but just to, well, it's acceptance really. It's just to accept things the way they are, and that you have to appreciate the beauty of life as it is. All organisms on this planet are obeying the same laws, and we're all subject to the same laws. We're all governed by things much greater than ourselves, and I think if you can appreciate that we're actually quite small, in a way it's comforting, because you see that everything happens and it just happens. You know, sometimes there's no particular reason, sometimes there is. Sometimes you might think it's good, sometimes you might think it's bad, but then you just have to kind of let that go, in my opinion. I think what also agrees with this is the part of the quote that says, make a hairbreadth difference, and heaven and earth will be set infinitely apart. Which is interesting, because I think what he's saying is heaven is earth. There is heaven on earth. Once you appreciate the beauty of everything, and the perfectness of everything, you'll see that there's no difference between good or bad. It's all one and the same thing. And by making a hairbreadth difference, making the smallest distinction, what he's saying is even the tiniest opinion, and boom, you've got this spectrum, and everything has to go on it now. There's also a lot to be said for identifying too much with the good and the perfect, the perfection. God knows we all strive after so many things in this world that we think are going to make us happy, which we again construct and cling on to, and they become part of our identity. So, money, power, whatever it might be, a new car, a new Mercedes, that's the ego again trying to minimize anxiety, and by clinging on to ideas of the happiness associated with attaining things. I'm coming into more spiritualistic stuff right now, just because I find it very interesting. But I think essentially with all of these things, being mindful of your thought processes and the emotions you attach to these things is going to be very beneficial in terms of helping you understand what you truly need in life. It's actually not possible for a human being to stop labelling everything completely. That's not what I'm arguing at all. But it's just to be more aware of when you are labelling something. Be aware of that process happening, because you can't stop it. You can't switch off your ego. And try and come to some kind of peace with that. So for me, I guess, living in such a doing, sort of go out and get them atmosphere, what I mean by that is kind of Western society, I guess, where we're all struggling and striving, we have ambitions, and it's so busy all the time. I think this kind of mindset that I've been talking about is very helpful, and it's a buffer. So test it out, see if you can recognize when you are forming an opinion, a like or a dislike, for example, and recognize that maybe it's not so closely allied with who you are as a person. Maybe it's coming out of somewhere else, it's a different part of you that's trying to create comfort for yourself. So thank you very much for listening. Leave your comments below and subscribe, and hope it hasn't been too rambly, and hope it have made sense, and thank you for watching. Bye.